guys, welcome back to my channel Medicine, and today we're going to be having a look through the IMAT and my tips and advice on boosting your score for the IMAT and just what you should be doing in terms of revising and preparing for the IMAT. So let's start off with what is the IMAT, and if you've clicked on this video you've probably already done a bit of research, probably got an idea of what it is, but I thought I'd give you a quick rundown anyway. So the IMAT, it stands for International Medical Admissions Test. This is a test which is basically to allow you to get into medical school in Italy, as they don't take into consideration as much your A-level grades or your high school grades. They just want you to pass them. The main priority goes on this medical test, and you don't have to do further interviews, such as, you know, in the UK you have to do further interviews and different other admissions tests, as well as getting really high grades at school. So in Italy the main factor is this test, the IMAT. So it's composed of 60 questions in 100 minutes, and these are subject specific questions. So there's 4 sections. First one, logical reasoning and general knowledge, and then the second, third and fourth questions, this is your scientific knowledge questions, so your biology, chemistry, physics and maths. And as you can see, the logical reasoning and general knowledge do take up a third of the paper, so it is quite a significant amount. So it's better to prepare for it, as it gives you a better idea of what the test is going to be like. So you're not on the day, you're not, just shown a random test paper and you don't know what's going on. So that's why a lot of advice is study early, and study smart as well. One key factor to take into account is that there is no calculators or periodic tables allowed in the IMAT test. And in this case, obviously you've got your physics and maths and chemistry as well, so the majority of you should be fine if you'll be doing science, A-levels, IBs, whatever you're doing at high school. So you've already got a general understanding of scientific knowledge anyway, but I thought I'd just mention it anyway. So if we're going to scoring, and again you probably know, but I just thought I'd let you know anyway. It's 1.5 points, 1.5 points for each correct answer. The most important part is this one, is it minus 0.4 points for each incorrect answer. So you've got to take this into consideration, especially when you're doing tests. Multiple choice questions, a lot of the time you can just guess it, or eliminate a couple and then guess it. In this case you've got to think, is it worth guessing in this case, as you will be losing points if you are getting it wrong. And if you leave it blank or just don't answer the question, it's 0 points in that case. Dates. So your registration usually opens July, beginning of July, and it lasts for about 3 weeks. And then the test actually takes place in September, and again it's usually within the first sort of 10 days of September. I think it's the 9th of September this year, 2021. And yeah, it's usually the beginning of September. So you do have from registration to September, you've got enough time to study, I'd say. Cost €130, and that was the 2020 price, and I assume it's going to be the same price again because it's usually the same. And let's go on to what I recommend, my advice, my sort of tips and tricks. So the first one I'd go on to is, use a specification. And that's, a lot of people don't sort of realise that everything you need to know is in that specification. So if you look at that and get an idea of what you need to know and what they want you to know, then you'll be ready for the testing, or you'll at least have a better understanding of what's going to be on that test. So I'd recommend, having a look through that and going through, maybe highlighting some points you are not aware of or want to study further, so you get an idea. And, just I think it's maybe a 10-page document maximum, maybe a bit longer, but it's really worth looking through that, getting an idea of what you need to know, and how it's going to give you an idea of how you should be studying anyway. Next point is see where you're at. And by this is, what I mean is, I recommend doing a past paper, maybe not the latest past paper, but the first ever IMAT paper there was, and just going through it. I know it's changed slightly since then, you've got an extra couple of general knowledge questions, but you want to get an idea of your ability to answer these sort of questions, because it's not the same as just doing a GCSE or an A-level or an IB, or it's quite different in that sense. And the time constraint, I think if you do it under time pressure straight away, you really get an idea of where you need to work and what you need to be doing. So I recommend going through a past paper, 100 minutes to do 60 questions, So set that timer out and just do it. Just don't worry about your score, don't worry about anything. Just go through it, and even if you need to guess. But get an idea of where you're guessing. Make sure you question mark these questions so you can look back at them again. And then once you've done this, it really gives you an idea of where you need to work. So you might realise that you're amazing at the logical reasoning and general knowledge, but your scientific knowledge isn't as up to scratch as you'd hope. So that's where you can put a bit more time studying in that section, or it might be the other way around. So this really gives you an idea of where you're at. In terms of my third point, past papers, I've written there limited number. So by that is what I mean is there hasn't been that many tests, maybe 10 past papers, something like that, maybe less. So don't waste them straight away. I know I said do one past paper and see where you're at. That doesn't mean do all of them at the same time. Just use them wisely, as they are really your main resource as to how the test is going to be for the coming years. And spread them out. Maybe set a date and a timer. You want to study this, and by that time you want to be able to be ready to do that test. So after you've done your first one, make sure you're prepared and ready to do another practice paper. And that really helps. If you're prepared for it, it really helps your motivation in terms of if you might do really well in the next one because you are just a little bit more prepared, and that really boosts your confidence. And if we go into further resources, so there are question books, things like that, and there's a lot more. Since I did it in 2018, now there's a lot more resources, a lot more websites. There's even some apps and stuff come out for the IMAT, so it's really easy to find further resources. And I recommend whatever you feel like using, just use it and see how it is. And there's no right or wrong in this case. When I did it myself personally, I got the 650 IMAT question book, which I think I just got it off Amazon or something like that. And these are mainly past paper questions as well, so it does split them up into your different sections, and it does have all the questions, so you can go through that, get an idea of where you study and what you need to study and etc. There's another thing, BMAT past papers and UK CAT past papers. I didn't write it there, but UK CAT ones as well. So the BMAT is made by Cambridge Assessment anyway, so that's the British Medical Admissions Test. And it's very similar to you've got your general knowledge, logical reasoning, science questions, but they also have an essay question at the end, which you don't have to complete that, but the first half of the paper is basically very, very similar, if not identical to the IMAT. So I'd recommend doing them sort of past papers, and they have many past papers because it's been taken place in the UK for a long time, so you can use that sort of past papers anyway to get up to scratch and practice a bit more on what you need to know and what you should be doing in terms of timing as well. In terms of further books, there's especially if you're not from the UK, if you are a non-EU student, there's a critical thinking textbook which I've put an image of just here. It's this one, which I did get myself, which is useful, very useful in terms of it lays out exactly what to do when you're thinking about these sort of logical reasoning questions and even some general knowledge questions. It really breaks down every little part, so you get a better idea and better understanding of how to go about answering these sort of questions. So again, I'm not sure how much it is, but again, you'll be able to find it on things like Amazon or just your bookshops and things like that. So I'd recommend that book if you are a bit uncomfortable doing these logical reasoning and general knowledge questions sort of idea. And in terms of for the scientific section, A-level textbooks, IB textbooks, that sort of textbooks are good. What I used myself was the CGP, which are the UK A-level textbooks, which I was using for my A-levels anyway at the time. So I've just put again an image there. You don't have to get them all, I'm just saying this is what I used. And these books, they are quite concise and they do break it down very simply, and they do match the specification of the AQA exam boards in the UK, which you can have a look, and very close to what the IMAT specification is. So for example, one point might say define photosynthesis and things like that. That might be a specification point, which you'll be able to find exactly what you need to know in this A-level biology textbook, if you are unsure of that sort of thing anyway. But if you've already got textbooks and revision guides and things like that, you don't have to go out and buy these CGP ones. This is just what I used in my case, because I already had them. Finally, I'd want to say study smart, don't overstudy. And some people do get burnt out by just studying and not really thinking about the bigger picture. Give yourself some time to rest. You don't want to register in July and then study every day for 10 hours straight just for the IMAT until September, and then realise by the time you hit September, you've burnt out and you don't really know what's going on anymore. You don't want to be in that case. So, break it down. Maybe put a little timetable, revision schedule, just get it simply laid out. You want to do this number of questions today, this number of questions tomorrow, or you want to go through this topic from the specification today, you want to go through this. But I recommend that specification is, as I mentioned, it is key in this case, I think, in terms of your scientific knowledge section anyway. Obviously for logical reasoning and general knowledge, the specification isn't that useful, because obviously logical reasoning is what they think of as logical reasoning. So that thinking skills textbook really comes into hand then. But for the scientific section, the specification is key in this case. So I'd recommend, having a look through that. And yeah, again, I just like to reiterate that point of study smart and don't overstudy. It's because, like I said, you don't want to be in that case in September realising, oh no, I've forgotten everything, or I've gotten to a point where this sort of test is, I just don't want to do it anymore. So you don't want to get to that case. You want to be, ready. You want to be just you want to study enough to be on that day, to be at your prime. So I'd recommend, like I said, a couple of days, take a break if you want, or start early, but don't start too hard in doing it. So keep your head level in terms of doing everything, and don't worry about too much about your timing and things like that, because straight away if you look at everything, it really hits you, doesn't it? Like, there's so much to do, but you realise you've got a lot of time and you can easily go about going through each question. If you don't understand it, have another look through, look at the question and answer guides, look at how to work through certain questions. That's another thing which I'd recommend is when you're doing a past paper, when you've got the answer wrong, make sure you really look at how they've got to the right answer, because a lot of these questions, they can be similar and reused again, just different numbers or different facts and figures and things like that. So it's really important that you get an idea of how to get to the answer, rather than is this the right answer or is this the wrong answer. I don't want to babble on too much about this sort of thing, but this is my sort of advice on how I studied. I probably studied about 3 months, if I'm honest. Again, that wasn't really hard. Obviously, the closer I was getting to the exam, the more study time I was putting in, the more study effort. But I thought I'd start early, get myself an idea so I can get a basic understanding. And yeah, that's a basic look at the IMAT. I'll hopefully do some further things regarding the IMAT and things like that, and hopefully this was of some use to anyone. And if you have anything, leave a comment and I'll get back to you anyway.